Sure. So this is a very fun question because what we're doing is part of this larger movement. Well, really, it's a collision of two separate movements. First is the open banking movement, which has kind of been around for a little while. Some of the discussions are moving from open banking to open finance. Some people debate about the semantics, some people don't. And the other discipline that's on a collision course with open banking is open identity, and specifically this notion of self-sovereign or reusable identity. And what Portabl is building really is at the intersection of these two things. We like to call it the missing identity layer for global open banking and payments. Effectively, what we're doing is making identity verification, authentication, and other types of financial suitability signals user-owned, permissioned, and portable or reusable. So that's kind of what's key on our mind. We're an early stage company. We raised our very first round last year. We're launching more in a public way in just a month. So we've got a lot on our plate. And, I think open banking is in desperate need of a different way of doing identity. And so we are really trying to solve for the fact that while it's easier than ever to connect some data from, say, your DDA account to some other app, and that has an element of consumer permissioning to it, it's still a far cry from what we probably need as an end state, which is more, privacy preserving by default, more selectively disclosable or composable by default, and truly kind of individual or end user led and managed, rather than kind of a permissioned API connection that then allows for server to server stuff happen off of our radar. So these are the things that are going on in our minds when we say, okay, how do we make it simple and easy for people to more clearly, share and manage their personal data across all of their different financial accounts and apps and anywhere else they're previously connected or hopeful to open an account in the future. So to provide a little bit more context about how we're making all of this possible, kind of one of the key elements of what's going on under the hood is this structure called a verifiable credential. So there's a couple different ways of explaining it. The way I like explaining it the most is this notion of having a passport and stamps. So, in the real world, people have passports. You can get them stamped. It kind of gives you a permanent record of some place you were let in, and you can accumulate stamps. So sort of in the same way, we're applying this mentality to how Portabl approaches end user data ownership and reuse. So what you can do is have PII, credit information, account information, etc., effectively stamped but cryptographically by an institution. And then you can go reshare some or all of that information elsewhere. So it's a different method of conveying information from point A to point B that's not, say, kind of just signing off on an API connection. It's actually a data structure that is user permissioned and owned, and you just share the data that you need to satisfy a requirement. So it helps with data minimization along the way. I really love this question for two reasons. One, because some of that stuff is already underway right now. In the US, we're particularly excited about Dodd-Frank 1033. We're about a year out, maybe a little less than a year out from the final ruling there. And, kind of time and time again, we hear Commissioner Troper saying, Plaid doesn't own your data, the banks don't own your data, people should own their data. How do we facilitate an interoperable open banking environment in the US that is supportive of this kind of change that we want to see? So that's one thing on our minds. In Canada, we've been seeing some interesting stuff with respect to specifically digital identity and the digital identity standards that are being, I think, still actively worked on in the banking community. So there's stuff already there. So we're excited to see that stuff mature and get launched and take shape. But it's super, super necessary because people use more fintech apps and personalized services than ever. And then types of fraud, types of bot attacks, plus this kind of fear people have about AI and identity spoofing, all of that stuff is quite a real risk. And so figuring out how to solve for this identity problem in open banking will hopefully have some positive contributions to keeping the ecosystem safe and fair.